maybe it's time to pass on the I can introduce the first panel which is going to be concentrated on social innovation that you already mentioned and the public policies. We know that recently the European Union has supported various initiatives to promote social innovation, and actually have encouraged public authorities to make use of the tools that have been developed by the European Union and in cooperation with the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development and the International Labour Organization. It is also obvious that even in the future, the European Union will continue to invest on social innovation and will try to make these funds more available to social economy and solidarity entities, mainly through the Horizon Program 2020 or the Employment and Social Innovation Program, and in general programs that will be funded under the European Social Fund Plus. And at national level, we know that the citizens and civil society organizations can also access funding through the cohesion funds and the programs, the recovery and resilience programs. However, the main question, one of the main challenges I would say is whether the social economy and social solidarity entities will have the capacities, the technical and financial capacities to obtain these funds. And having said that, I would like to introduce the speakers of our first panel. I'm very happy to have here with us representatives of the most important institutions internationally that are doing research or policy advocacy for social solidarity economy and public policies and the improvement of public policies. So we have Mr. Vic van Vuuren, the chair of the United Nations Intergroup Task Force of social solidarity economy. Welcome, Mr. Vic van Vuuren. With us, we have also Judith Hitchman, that is the joint coordinator of RIPESS, the Intercontinental Network of Social Solidarity Economy, and also delegated by the Urgenci network. Amal Chevreau, I'm sorry for my friends, they are not good at all. That is a policy analyst or on the innovation department of the Organization of Economic Development and Cooperation. And we were waiting also Victor Meseguer from the Social Economy Europe. Victor, yes, he is here because I cannot see him in my screen.
Good morning, Georgia.
Good morning. Well, very active and dedicated the last year in the promotion of the EU Action Plan for Social Economy. The idea is to make a structured dialogue based on some questions that I will make to each one of you in rotation. While at the same time, we will have the chat open. If somebody wants to make a further intervention or question, it could write on the thread. And We have about an hour in our disposal, but we will try to finish in 45 minutes and leave 15 minutes for the participants to reflect. Okay, so I will, if you all agree, I can start with a sequence of questions. The first question will be directed to Mr. Vic van Vuuren. It would be related more on the main challenges that are facing social economy, social solidarity entities in co-designing and complementing public policies, especially in the post-COVID period. With the public administration. If you can comment on that, please.
Thank you, Georgia, and hi everybody from a very cold Switzerland. You know, my opening line in most of my comments when I talk about the social and solidarity economy is that it's the world's best kept secret. You know, there is so much good work being done in the environment of the social and solidarity economy, but we have huge potential to achieve and scale up our activities. And it's an interesting point you've raised. You know, what are some of these challenges that we've got in getting to the point where we can deliver more on the social and solidarity economy arena? And I think first of all, it's the regulatory frameworks. Now, Europe is leading the debate on the social economy, and the regulatory frameworks that they've got in place are really good. But when we look at the picture globally, we'll find that SSE remains on the periphery. We don't have regulatory frameworks in place, adequate ones in the developing economies. It's not in the mainstream of policy debates. It's not in the mainstream of financial and budgetary debates. And so we need to look at how we get this into place. So globally, we need to put in certain building blocks. We need to get a better recognition at a global level, at the United Nations, at the G20, the G7, within the different regional blocks, to mainstream the thinking and the discussions on the social and solidarity economy. Also, we mustn't rest on our laurels in the areas that do have legislation, because that needs to be updated and to reflect the changing realities of the world of work in many member states. Financing has been mentioned in some of your comments. The unreliability of funding sources also prevents good practices in the SSE from being scaled up and replicated, as well as their ability to achieve performance levels that match their ambitions. Traditional financing sources don't necessarily know how to interact with SSE initiatives, and so there has to be an education process. And that brings me on to another component. The public awareness and the education systems are not geared to teach people about and entities about the importance of the social and solidarity economy. And so we're going to have to look at the whole education and training system from school level right through to the other institutions, post-school institutions, etc. There's also a lack of comparable statistics and what we're dealing with. And so we're going to have to up our game there as well. But once again, I want to come back to the comments on mainstreaming. We need to mainstream the SSE in policy discussions, and the participation of parties is crucial. We need to include in the consultations with government social partners, and in particular SSE entities, and we have many of them who are participating today, and many who are representative across the world in terms of the global platforms that have been created. The SSE umbrella organizations are important. They bring to the party best practice, they bring advice and guidance. And at the United Nations Task Force, we have an observer group, and many like Judith and Victor who are participating in the discussion today are a key element of guiding us in the UN as to the realities of the social and solidarity arena. And I just want to close by saying that the adoption of SSE legislation that explicitly recognizes SSE values and principles provides a strong basis for promoting the SSE as a backbone of many activities, and can go towards delivering the Sustainable Development Goals in poverty reduction. Let me stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these important comments. Yes, exactly. Legal framework is a challenge to many entities, especially entities that are active in countries that still do not have a legislative framework to deal. And here, I think my second question will come to Judith Hitchman to ask her about the role of RIPESS in making more visible and understandable the concept of social solidarity economy, and how has the perception of the social solidarity economy improved over time?
Thank you very much, Georgia, and good morning, everybody. It's always difficult to intervene after Vic because he's so complete in what he says. RIPESS is 25 years old this year. So 25 years, we're starting to harvest some of the fruits of the work that has been carried out over that period. Now, around the world, there is a huge body of work that is being carried out. Just to give you some examples of the impact of that, the Secretary General of the United Nations mentioned social solidarity economy as one of the elements that will help us to overcome the post-COVID crisis. And I think this is a very important element that we need to build upon. Also, as you've already mentioned, there are several countries, particularly in Europe, that have got legislation. But I think that the perception has grown through the work and the empowerment, the self-empowerment really, of civil society and the grassroots organizations. If I take my own network, Urgenci, which is the Global Community Supported Agriculture Network, we are over 1 million people in Europe alone. So there is recognition because, for example, in French school books, there is mention of AMAP, the Association pour le maintien de l'agriculture paysanne, which is CSA, in French school books. So people are actually starting to learn about what it is. So there's a passing on and the passing of the baton and information going on. Also, the French state has had fairly active ministers throughout the last 20 years or so who have promoted it. And we are shifting progressively, I would say, in Europe from the perception of social solidarity economy as being a useful tool for social inclusion to the perception that we need to reach, which is that it is a real and viable economic paradigm and also can provide the necessary solutions to the post-COVID economic, social, and environmental crisis. So I think that there is a much improved perception, which is really built on the activism and the grassroots successes of millions of people. And it is how to scale this up through policy nowadays that is the real thing that we need to work on. Vic has been helping us to amplify the voice of social and solidarity economy within the Committee on World Food Security and also the FAO. Although we have already, for example, succeeded 2 years ago in getting solidarity economy included as one of the 10 elements of agroecology and voted on by the FAO Council. So these are building blocks that we can use in working at grassroots level. And I would like to also say that the most important level in all of this is local and territorial authorities, because that is really where the delegation of power for the implementation of much policy exists. And I think those are the first thoughts that I'd like to contribute here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Judith. the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development also is working towards making visible the effects of and the work of the social economy. The last years, they have developed many policy papers researching and analyzing the role of the social solidarity economy, and wonderful results have been coming up from the variety of the research you already have contacted. So my next question would be to Amal, and we have to do more about what policy measures could policymakers develop to allow the development of social innovation initiatives with the support of social solidarity actors at the local level?
Thank you, Georgia. And it's extremely hard to speak after Vic and after Judith, because I think they've touched upon everything that needs to be done to mainstream the social economy. And speaking about mainstreaming, we held the first international conference of the Global Action on the Social and Solidarity Economy last September. And the theme of the conference was taking the social economy from the margins to the mainstream. And we do think at the OECD that, of course, legal and regulatory frameworks are very important, but you have many different building blocks, and I think Vic and Judith have already spoken about these important building blocks, but I would add easing access to finance, easing access to markets, and so on for social economy organizations. We are developing actually an international guide on legal frameworks that should be published this year under the umbrella of this global action that's funded by the EU and covers 33 countries. We are also developing another guide on social impact measurement, which is something that goes hand in hand with the fact that, you know, everybody speaks about social economy having many impacts, but one of its emblematic impacts is social impact. So we need to help also social economy organizations based on their needs and their size and their many specificities to be able to measure their social impact as well. So we have many, many other papers that are coming out this year on gender, on youth, on social procurement, and other papers that are coming. So going back to your question, I mean, of course, we all speak about the same things, which are we have to have enabling framework conditions for social innovation or social and solidarity economy to thrive. And I would say, for instance, for social innovation more specifically, we have identified 5 elements of the, you know, that could be within the framework conditions to be pushed by national governments and local governments for social innovation to develop at the local level. These 5 conditions are related to culture and behaviors, laws and regulations again, institutional frameworks, social innovation community, and resources available. Meaning, if you don't put in place the right conditions for social innovators and social entrepreneurs to thrive, then they can't thrive. So some points are extremely important, but once you have put in place these framework conditions, it's not enough. You have to be able to implement them. So you have to align and combine local resources with available political priorities in territories. So similar to support, for instance, traditional innovation, policymakers can act through demand side measures and supply side measures. And they can provide, of course, the software and hard infrastructure, but they could also improve access to funding and markets beyond public procurements and other areas. And of course, you need also the element of monitoring the progress dynamics that can help identify the changes to the framework conditions and analyze the outcome measures taken so as to adjust policies as needed. So in a nutshell, innovation or social innovation has now come to the fore as one of the most driving elements of the social economy. And governments and cities and regions mostly, and I agree with Judith, these are really major contributors to the development of social innovation today and social economy in general, have to put in place these frameworks. And some of them are doing already. I mean, if you take Portugal, for instance, if you take Spain, if you take France, but I would say also beyond. With the global action, we have identified a lot of wonderful initiatives taken, for instance, at the local level in Brazil and in some states like the state of Bahia. Mm-hmm. So I think we have a political momentum that we have to try collectively, and the OECD is doing a great deal on that, and we are working a lot on regulations and the legal frameworks. For instance, we're releasing a manual for designing legal frameworks for social enterprises within the next coming weeks, and also a scoping paper on legal frameworks for social and solidarity economy organizations in these wonderful 33 countries where we discovered so many things. So what I'm saying is we have to transform this political momentum today into real action. And I think the adoption of the EU action plan is maybe one of the most emblematic type of outcomes of this transformation of political momentum. And Victor will speak a lot better than I am on this. But I think, yes, if you have this combination of three elements, then you can drive social innovation. And of course, it has to be driven at the local level, and I would say goes up to the national level, because at the end of the day, social innovation is highly local, and we have to encourage people to tap into this potential to help communities recover from the crisis. And I'll stop right there.
Exactly. Thank you very much. There's a lot of work done by all the three organizations that already took the floor and spoke, and there are a lot of initiatives that could inspire others. Indeed, yes, social innovation starts from a local level, and the challenge is to see how we can scale it up towards the national, or even replicate it to other countries. And here, yes, to transform the political momentum to the action. And Victor, here, a promoter of the Social Economy Action Plan, could tell us, can give us some more information about the launching of the action plan from the European Commission, an action plan for the social economy. In December it was, I think, 2021. Why do we need an EU action plan for the social economy?
Good morning, Georgia. Good morning, colleagues. I'm very happy to share this moment with you after this beginning of the new year. Congratulations to RIPESS, as I have said on the chat, for the 25th anniversary. It's a long way, building a global social economy community. So for 25 more years and many more, transforming the world and promoting the social economy. And indeed, great to speak after Vic, great to speak after Judith, after Amal, because indeed there is a momentum for the social economy at global level. This is obvious. And also what it is obvious is that we have tools that we didn't have before. The Social Economy Action Plan is one, and I will reply to your question in a moment. But indeed, the OECD Global Action, for instance, that was funded by the European Union, it is the first time that we have been able to meet with the global social economy community, to connect with people from all over the world. RIPESS already does that, but for many of us, it has been an occasion of discovery, of meeting. The work that the ILO is doing through leading also the UN Task Force on Social and Solidarity Economy, and the excellent work of Vic, the fact that the social economy will be the agenda of the International Labour Conference in 2022. All that is quite unique. We are in a quite unique moment. And what it is important is that this is much more than a momentum. This is much more than marketing. This is much more than noise about the social economy. This is just the beginning. The same goes with the Social Economy Action Plan that was presented in December. Why do we need a Social Economy Action Plan? Because the social economy is of key importance to achieve the objectives of the European Union. The European Union in this mandate, which will end in 2 years, it started almost 3 years ago, wants to achieve an economy that works for people, wants to achieve a climate neutral European Union by 2030 through the European Green Deal, wants to give a new push for democracy in Europe and beyond the European Union. To all that, the social economy contributes, and we need to see in a transversal public policy how we can do it. Also, Europe and the rest of the world have a certain social economy problem. Social economy is very cool indeed. Social economy is providing solutions, but social economy, as Vic said, is a hidden treasure. It's not known everywhere. It's very heterogeneously. By the way, something very important, even where the social economy is most developed, there is an immense way ahead. It's not that everybody knows about the social economy in France or Spain, right? That have social economy laws, or Portugal, that have social economy laws and very well structured social economy ecosystem. It's not that any young entrepreneur or any entrepreneur of any age knows that the social economy is a possibility, even in those countries. Imagine in others where a legal or policy framework doesn't even exist. So we have a lot to do. The action plan is just the beginning. It has a horizon 2030. I can explain many of the concrete actions why this will be justified. I will give just a couple of examples now and wait for the other questions to go a bit more into depth. But for instance, the Council recommendation on developing social economy framework conditions. The idea is that the social economy in Europe and in the world, and this is linked again to the work of the ILO and to the work of the OECD, cannot be a potato somewhere and a strawberry somewhere else. Because if not, the social economy is nothing, it's a buzzword. Okay, we need some coherence, we need some convergence. It will be adapted to the local conditions. It will be adapted to the local needs, to the traditions, but we also need a fil rouge, we also need convergence. So this is what the Council recommendation that hopefully will be adopted in 2023 after the OECD guidelines on social economy, I guess that social and solidarity economy that are being negotiated and worked on in 2022. So the idea is to accompany member states to develop legal and policy frameworks. Legal and policy framework is not only laws, it's telling countries you need an interlocutor. You need to support your social economy to be together and create organizations and create networks, as Vic said, because without networks, we cannot implement these strategies. Without a common voice or unitary voice, some coordination between you entrepreneurs, pioneers, we cannot implement social economy policies. It's also about public procurement and so on and so forth. I will stop here and give more details later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. In this first set of questions, I think that the challenge of the legislative framework appears in all on the intervention and the development of the right local context to give ground to social initiatives to be developed. An important part on scaling up and replication is also the sharing of experience and knowledge between institutions, organizations, and movements. So based on that, my next question would be to Vic van Vuuren. I would like to ask, promoting knowledge sharing on innovative social solidarity solutions and good practices is crucial to expand the visibility of initiatives and promote peer learning and exchanges. So in this context, social solidarity economy's impacts have proven to have the potential to be scaled up through South-South and Triangle cooperation. This is something that I read in a policy document found on the webpage of the UN Interagency Task Force. Could you please elaborate what is the South-South and Triangle cooperation and why it is a strategic instrument for the promotion and support of innovative SSE practices?
I think the principle of solidarity establishes a close link between South-South and triangular cooperation, which is the SSTC on the one hand, and social and solidarity economy on the other. And it enables these countries that we're talking about, where we want to establish a more concrete regulatory framework to share experiences one with the other. And that is why it becomes so extremely important, because it tackles the areas where we have the least impact at the moment. It enables the sharing of knowledge, experiences, and best practices in support of capacity building, technology transfer, and resource mobilization. So the interaction between the SSE and SSTC is an excellent opportunity to implement the 2030 SDG goals and to work directly with the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development based on the spirit of solidarity and focused in particular on the needs of the poorest and the most vulnerable, with the participation of all. You know, the principles of solidarity shared by the SSTC and the SSE mean that the two models of development cooperation are perfectly compatible when it comes to knowledge sharing of experiences and best practices and support for capacity building, the transfer of technologies, resource mobilization, which is extremely important, and the establishment of international networks and international innovation chains. In addition, we speak about innovation, and the innovation component of the social and solidarity economy brings it closer to the concept of South-South and triangular cooperation. The SSDC allows countries to interact at a horizontal level by promoting solutions that are a result of an exchange of skills, resources, and technical expertise while promoting solidarity. South-South and triangular mechanisms can therefore amplify the impact of SSE in national context through the creation of regional and interregional networks and platforms for knowledge sharing and the exchange of experiences. The development of social and solidarity economy throughout the world will contribute greatly to the achievement of the SDGs. However, their success depends largely on the achievement of Goal 17, which is the partnerships for achieving goals. By its collaborative and participatory nature, the SSE can provide effective participation in the implementation of the 17 SDGs. In the process of building this broad global partnership for SDG implementation, the SSTC, which is the South-South Triangular Cooperation, will play a crucial role in strengthening the role of SSE as a tool for local economic development. And Judith touched on this, with the emphasis on promoting sustained, shared, and sustainable economic growth with full and productive employment and decent work for all. And so the South-South link has got linkages direct to the local economic development through the exchange of knowledge and practices that I referred to earlier. Approximately 85% of the world's population is in the Southern Hemisphere, which represents a major challenge for achieving the Millennium Development Goals and the Agenda 2030. So when we talk about the SSE, this linkage to South-South cooperation becomes an extremely important component in taking this whole debate further. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this perspective. When it comes about, when we talk about networking, I cannot go without asking RIPESS and Judith a question about the networking and how can policymakers and social solidarity economy networks work together to unleash that transformational power of the social and social solidarity economy and improve policies which impact on innovation performance.
Thanks for this tricky question. I remember in the late 1990s working on a European project, and one of the key elements was social and solidarity economy districts that were created in Italy, because social and solidarity economy isn't just linked to any one sector. You have energy, you have food, you have land use, you have seeds, culture, healthcare. All sectors of industry are all concerned. And what has happened, I think, very largely until now is a sectorial approach. The networks have been very largely sectorial. You have some remarkable progress that has been made in the different sectors. But the role of RIPESS at national, local, continental, and intercontinental level is to try to draw it together as a holistic system. And I think this is really where we need to work together and to build much more policy at all levels, whether through the Green Deal in Europe or across the world. And I agree with Amal that some of the most exciting things have happened and continue to happen in Brazil in spite of a very repressive national government. For example, during the pandemic, a lot of the landless people's farmers have been working through community-supported agriculture and bringing all the surplus food production for free as part of the commons into the favelas. And this is the sort of thing that needs to be linked to many, many other aspects. So I think that that is part of the challenge we're facing. I think another challenge where we as networks are taking an active role is to fight the pushback from the existing system. I remember at, I think it was the Paris COP, Carrefour had huge panels supporting agroecology. Now, agroecology is not just a scientific technique, it is also very much a social game changer. The narrative that we as social movements are pushing for is for this joined up social change to the economic paradigm, social, economic, and environmental change in line with the SDGs, but going beyond them. Because again, the SDGs are built on a neoliberal concept of growth. And we do need to push back against this very strongly, because our success is such today that it's being captured. It's being strongly captured at European level, and we are pushing back against it. And I think that this is really, we need to have this joined up, networked approach that RIPESS has taken, bringing all the separate strands of what make up our life together within our communities, but also doing this at territorial level and together with all the institutional authorities from local to United Nations level. And I think that is really where we are trying to go today and where we need to go much more strongly, hand in hand.
Thank you very much, Judith. A question now to Amal about social vouchers that have gained also momentum in many OECD and non-OECD countries as tools to offer innovative solutions for achieving social, economic, and even environmental goals. And sometimes they have been used by or promoted by social solidarity economy entities and national and regional governments to deliver welfare programs. It is something that we also try to promote within our project MedTOWN. I would like you to share with us some main challenges in terms of regulatory framework, and if there are any recommendations to effectively capitalize on such initiatives that have been implemented around the world.
Okay. Before I answer this question, this specific question of social vouchers, I would just like to say that to develop the project that we have, this big project that we have on social and solidarity economy, we have set up what we call peer learning partnerships. We have 6 consortia of peer learning partnerships. We have about 130 networks that work with us, especially on 2 items, which are legal and regulatory frameworks for the social economy and social impact measurement. But we also work on gender issues and internationalization. Why do I say all this? Because I know that we have RIPESS today, we have the UN task force, we have Victor Meseguer with the huge network he represents. I wanted to share this information to say that these consortia have come together. The OECD just offered a platform for these consortia to come together and work, because we want to benefit from their insights to develop the guides. We want to hear from networks. We want to have the feedback of networks, because at the end of the day, these legal frameworks that we will provide international guidance on need to be practical, need to be usable by these networks and these organizations. So we needed to understand from bottom up what needs to be done. We needed to listen on also how it is difficult for many social economy organizations to set up social impact measurement approaches, because what's out there is not fitted for them necessarily. So I just wanted to share that, and we will release the fruit of this work because we value what happened throughout 6 months, and we hope to continue to work with these networks as a community of practice to feed OECD work from the ground. So je ferme la parenthèse, as we say in French. So I go back to social vouchers. Well, I had the pleasure to work on this topic, to be honest, because it's so practical. And what I can tell you is that what we have found is that over the last 70 years, these tools that are called social vouchers have developed so much in the world that today it is estimated that about 80 million people use these vouchers daily. And a lot of these people are in Europe. About 11 or maybe even more, 11 member states have developed social vouchers, but they are developing as well elsewhere. You have 3 types of vouchers. Just briefly, you have work-related vouchers, you have public service vouchers, and you have more of what we call local development vouchers that are directed to firms, either to spur innovation or to help them train people and so on. So in a nutshell, this is a tool that is widely now used to help implement recovery plans. And for instance, in France, there is also a proposal to create what we call a teleworking voucher. The main challenges are that to have a voucher system put in place, you have basically 3 or 4 main conditions. You have to have a regulatory framework. You have to have a tax system that's behind that supports the voucher. You have to have a monitoring system because you have to make sure that the voucher are used for purpose. And you have to assess the impact, of course, of these vouchers. So, for instance, social economy organizations mainly use vouchers to deliver either essential goods or also in the personal and household services sector, where social enterprises mainly are very active. There is a huge use of social vouchers by social economy organizations, either as employers or as providers of these social vouchers. So there is no real challenge. What's important is for the state or for the local government that wants to use voucher is to clarify the purpose of the voucher and to set in place the conditions for users to use it. So for me, the best example that we have studied so far is the example of Romania. Romania had passed a law in 2018, and this law encompasses a huge range of social vouchers, but with specific indications on how to use each voucher. So they have daycare vouchers, they have tourism vouchers, they have a huge variety of vouchers. You have countries like France where vouchers exist for the last 55 years, for instance, Belgium as well. Brazil has one of the most emblematic social voucher systems, which is the workers' food program. Mexico has another social voucher system, which is part of the, the culture. So what I'm saying is, it's not so much the legal framework that's challenging. It's really defining clearly what the purpose of the voucher is, because at the end of the day, there is a tax incentive behind, and this tax incentive has to serve the community. So, and you have another element that's important to social vouchers, which is to have the network of providers. Vouchers suppose that you have to get, you have either a good or a service that you get when you use a voucher. So you have to have this network of providers. And this is where, for instance, social economy organizations could be very active as well, because they are very close to the needs of communities, and they can develop, these services and goods at competitive prices sometimes in certain places. So I would say that yes, there is, I would say, opportunities for social economy organizations to invest more markets, that could open more markets for them if countries are very clear on how to use social vouchers.
Thank you very much. It seems that social vouchers have gained the interest of the participants. There are some questions. I don't know if I should make it rapidly here and then continue with the next or not. There is a participant that wants to ask both to Judith and Amal if food stamps could be considered as social vouchers. So I don't know, maybe we can quickly.
Yes. In the context of the United States, yes, these are somehow considered as social vouchers because they deliver an essential good, but of course with certain conditions. But I would share the publication on social vouchers, that it's, just 1 month old, because I don't want to monopolize the whole conversation about social vouchers. And I'm happy to answer questions, or people can reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to engage with them. Thank you.
Okay, Judith, quickly, you want to comment something, or at the end?
I think the social vouchers are very, very interesting. I think they become even more interesting when there is a conditionality attached, such as where you can spend the social voucher so that it remains within the social solidarity economy framework, Amal.
Great, thank you. Well, all this, yes, please.
I just said that I agree completely with Judith on that.
Great. So in our project, we consider social vouchers as part of social innovation. So I come back to Victor and ask him, the action plan seeks to enhance social innovation, supports the development of the social economy, and boosts its social and economic transformative power. I would like to know what type of measures are proposed to achieve it. Just give us a glance on these measures. I'm sure you cannot cover all on as more into.
But we can cover some. Thank you very much for the question, Georgia. And also I'll try to describe briefly what's in for the Euro-Mediterranean region. So for instance, some concrete actions that and also some concrete actions that will be launched in the next weeks, even, or that are already launched. One of them is the transition pathways for the social economy and proximity ecosystem. There is already a survey that has shared in the chat with all of you, and the idea is that we collectively build a vision, a horizon, a vision for the social and solidarity economy, for the social economy and proximity, with a 2030 horizon. What does this mean? This means to be able to identify our strengths. As Judith said before, the social economy is intersectorial. We know that social economy, for instance, has an extreme added value, for instance, in producing renewable energy through communities, in mobilizing citizens to produce their own renewable energy. We also know that we are leaders in agroforestry, bioagriculture, community management of resources as forests, etc., etc. We also know where we are very strong in the circular economy, and Amal knows it also very well, and everyone, because the OECD recently published a very interesting paper on social economy and the circular economy. We know that the social economy can have a potential, and let's go to a previous reflection. Europe, and not only Europe, is lagging behind, for instance, in startups, in technological, we are also lagging off in entrepreneurship in general. We are less entrepreneurial than other regions of the world. And maybe collective entrepreneurship is our thing. Maybe collective entrepreneurship is a way to promote. It's not only the only thing that we have. Individual entrepreneurship will continue to exist, but maybe it's a way to boost people, to make people more into entrepreneurship. Doing it together is much easier. Doing it together is about synergies, right? It's about meeting with people that has different capacities. Doing it together also is about more ability to raise funding, to raise financing for your organization. So this is the transition pathways. And before, Georgia, you introduced me saying that that it was of key importance in achieving the action plan. Well, this is not right. The ecosystem was important in achieving the social economy action plan. And what the Commission is trying to do with the transition pathways is applying this ecosystem approach. And in the ecosystem, like in the districts that Judith referred before, like in a forest, every piece is important. And the pieces are not only the social economy actors. The pieces are also the ILO, the OECD, researchers, local authorities. The business is virtually everyone. So we have to design, we are invited by the Commission, by European institutions, to design together this vision. The European Commission yesterday announced that already this year in 2022, they have prepared 6 million to invest in the green transition of the social economy, a pilot project for social economy green transition initiatives under the single market program. And we are all invited to imagine our future, to identify our strengths, and to identify also what we need to arrive where we want to arrive, where we need to achieve our collective dreams, right? So we can write our letter to the Magic Kings, as we say in Spain, or to Santa Claus, as we say in other cultures. Okay, what's in for the Mediterranean region? One very concrete action is about improving access to finance for social economy entrepreneurs in the Western Balkans, in the Eastern Partnership, and in the Southern neighborhoods. This will be done, of course, also in the European Union. We are talking mostly about guarantees. So it will be financial intermediaries investing in social economy projects. What the European Union will give to the intermediary is a guarantee, which means that the intermediary will be a bit more happy to invest in social economy, because if he loses, he will not lose everything. A part will be guaranteed by the European Union. So this is something that will be done. We need also to go, and I think that we can do this together beyond the guarantee, because people need money, but doesn't only need money. They also need capacity building. They also need accompanying services. They also need to make their business case. So this is something that I think we can work together on co-designing that with the European Union. And again, in the Euromed region, let's say, for instance, the OEC, the Organization for the Security and Cooperation in Europe, has a project financed mostly by Italy at this point, which is called the IDEAS project. And among the tasks of this project, there is a green paper on social economy in the Western Balkans, which is very interesting. But beyond the green paper, which is important, there is also exchanges for young entrepreneurs. Applying the logic of Erasmus+, that young entrepreneurs from the Western Balkans can go to enterprises in a different region, in a different country, to learn, come back, and apply the social innovations that they have seen. So this project can be replicated in other regions, and I think that are quite interesting.
Very, very interesting, really. And before I pass on to the last question to Mr. Wickman, I will change a little bit the sequence, and I will go to Judith, because we are talking now about macroeconomy, and I would like to make this continually. We see that in most cases, social solidarity economy promotes circular economy models. And precisely you, Judith, are also a member of a network that promotes food sovereignty. So I would like to hear from your point of view, what are the main challenges that SSE actors face when they want to promote circular economy models, agroecology, food security, or care of common good?
Thanks for that question, Georgia. I think that a challenge that everybody faced, not just SSE actors, during the pandemic was the total breakdown, which is actually continuing, of long food chains. Everybody saw pictures of supermarket shelves that were open. There aren't enough truck drivers. Goods from China cannot be delivered because this, that, and the other. So what happened was the exponential development of local food chains and direct producer to consumer networks. Unfortunately, of course, you cannot grow a whole crop overnight. And by the time the new crops were grown, the pandemic had eased a bit and people went back to their supermarket habits. So I think that one of the things that can happen is for national and local authorities, partly using the farm to fork and the new law on sustainable food systems, can actually support local food chains, because agroecological local food chains are really much healthier. There are no pesticides being used. The food is fresher when it is delivered. There are fewer, if any, intermediaries, so the producers benefit. And I'd like to say, because this is a Mediterranean network here that we are addressing, that Urgenci has a Mediterranean network. And with the support of the FAO, we worked together with Terre Humanisme, and we developed 2 training manuals, one of which is based on what CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, also known as local solidarity partnerships between producers and consumers for agroecology. So there are 2 training booklets that are in English, French, and Arabic, which is something quite unusual, I think, around the Mediterranean networks, because we emphasized and got support for actually having the booklets printed in Arabic as well. The trainers network, the trainers manual, and the actual training manual as to what the local solidarity partnerships entail. So there's a link there in the resources. You can go to the Mediterranean network and see what they entail. So those are very concrete examples, because I think one of the things we need to do in the future is not just awareness raising, it is produce training materials. And this is something that Urgenci has really decided to focus on very largely. We have a new knowledge hub, which is currently running the first cohort of food citizenship training. And I think that we need to look more at outreach to actually training people and building these collective materials on social and solidarity economy in order to make it more understood, not just by the users, but also by the authorities. So I think that those are some of the aspects and ways in which we can bring the institutional and the practitioner levels together. I really believe that we need to do more innovative work in developing jointly manuals and training programs. So that is one of the aspects that I think we can take forward to move our innovations into the public domain.
Thank you very much, Judith. Capacity building programs are very important. You all have mentioned it. But when it comes to social experimentation, and here I'm going to link it with my last question to Mr. Vikvan, sometimes we think that maybe a sandbox on a legal framework would help to test and to give an opportunity to such initiatives to thrive and see whether they can work and whether they are effective. So what is your opinion on the possibility of creating a sandbox or testing environments for specific legislation on social innovation?
Thank you, and I'm sure I'll be brief because of your time constraints. I think the sandbox concept is excellent, but what we need to understand is that we've got the European region, which is moving ahead. The social economy Europe stuff is really great, and we're lagging behind in other parts of the world. So we need a sandbox in different regions of the world that are customized to their circumstances. So we need to create these sandboxes, and I think the concept is really good. But in order for this to be sustainable, there are certain building blocks that have to be in place. The regulatory frameworks that we refer to, and the inclusion in the mainstream of the economic thinking of a country. We have to get those building blocks in place, whilst at the same time using these sandboxes to be innovative, to learn from best practices, because there's a hunger out there from the practitioners to learn about how to do things. But we need to run these two things parallel, getting the building blocks in place and then the sandboxes at the same time, but on a regional basis, not just confined to one space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, I will pass to my last question to Amal, quite general, if you can briefly. How could policy makers support the social solidarity economy to play its transformative role towards a more fair and sustainable world during the post-COVID period?
Very, very quickly. First of all, I would say continue to develop the common vision and promote collaboration with the social economy organizations. I think policymakers now have understood that social economy can help a lot, not only in dealing with emergency responses to crises such as the one we live in, but also constructing this recovery on another basis, meaning a much more sustainable base. So, but for that, they have to be at the table. So the policymakers have to create spaces for social economy organizations to participate in policy making. They have to listen to them. They have to consult them. They have to ensure that stakeholders are really fully integrated in the policymaking system. I would insist on two, three things that are complementary to what Vic and Judith and Victor have said already, which are definitely develop the necessary skills of social economy organizations to scale up, because I think a lot of them are doing that already, but more can be done. For instance, in France, we have France Active, which works with its local associations to support government, promote the provision of many things to social economy organizations. So you have to help these organizations, such as this one, for instance, in France, that help social economy organizations scale up. And the last 2 points is definitely continue easing access to tailored funds that are patient, that are really fit for purpose for social economy organizations, and ease to access to markets, because we have observed that social economy organizations have developed a lot in places, either cities and regions and countries, where they had access to procurement, either public or private. Don't forget that there is also a huge opportunity with private markets.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
The last point I want to say is that we are making an effort within the OECD to, as Vic said, to open up, to help other countries learn from the European experience and EU country experiences on legal frameworks and so on. And we are developing principles, guiding principles on that are open to non-members, also non-OECD members to adopt and to adhere if they wish to.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, now that we are talking about funding, if Victor can tell us more about the European Competence Center for Social Innovation and the European Social Innovation Catalyst Fund, some more details of what is about to come.
Okie dokie. All right. So first of all, like two considerations. Yeah, I mean, I think that the social economy is a European success story. That's true. I think that the social economy was born even before, but we can say in the Industrial Revolution in Manchester, so in Europe and so on. But we also have many things to learn from other regions of the world. So it's not that we have I mean, indeed, the fact that we have achieved together this social economy action plan, that it's a transnational institution that is putting it in place, everything is quite unique. But at the same time, we have so much links and so much to learn from other regions of the world, and even subnational authorities. And Quebec is always a good example, but there are others. Brazil was mentioned before, and so on. Then the action plan. If we look at the action plan, and if the Commission and us all as a community will look at the action plan in boxes, we will lose its potential. So the European, everything here needs to be linked. Everything is part of the same meal, of the same recipe. The European Competence Centers for Social Innovation, the European Competence Center for Social Innovation, is the logical consequence of 6 transnational partnerships that were funded last year, in which several countries, usually 3-4 countries, are cooperating together on defining what the national social innovation ecosystem is, and exchanging and replicating best practices. If this recipe is only for the non-profit, let's say, it's only for the third sector, and other meals are only for the cooperative economy, and we disconnect the social innovation from the potential of the recovery and resilience facility, from the potential of the InvestEU. So if we look at the world and at policy in boxes, we are losing the potential. So what are the expectations? It is a cool project. It is a cool project that has mobilized different actors connected to social innovation, not only social economy actors, again, local authorities, private sector, a lot of third sector, which is a very important part of the social economy, so the more associative movement, NGOs, and so on. And indeed, the Commission is proposing a European Social Innovation Catalyst Fund under InvestEU, Horizon Europe, which is the program for research. And then again, we need to apply the ecosystem approach. But again, if we don't reach out the ones to the others, if the social innovation community doesn't reach out to other social economy communities doing other things, if we don't connect, we're losing the magic in this recipe. So that's, at this point, this is what I can say. We need to connect it all. We need to build a community. The community will be plural by definition. This is not about one actor getting it all. And yeah, this is the main task, I will say, of the coming years with the social economy action plan.
Great, thank you very much. Work together and share. Amal, you want to say something? You have raised hand.
Just to say something, really one final thought, building on what Vic was saying about SDGs. We have conducted a lot of research on how to reach SDGs. And actually, we have one of the main findings at the OECD is that 65% of the UNCDs cannot be attained if local government is not involved in one way or another. So in this space of the contribution of local governments, social economy can play a great role, because if local government partners with social economy organizations, that given all this pioneering role of social economy organizations, either in circular economy, social inclusion, inclusion of disadvantaged groups, and so on, then maybe this push for attaining SDGs could go even faster. So I wanted to share this with people today.
Thank you very much for that important observation, which is in fact the title of our panel, Social Innovation and Public Policy. So it's vital for the public sector or authorities to work and collaborate with social solidarity entities. Well, it was a really joy to have you all with us here. Thank you very much for your time. It was also for me very challenging to have speakers like you. make questions. I think the only question that I read into the thread, if I'm correct, it was about best practices from your experience, but I would say that you already shared links of your organizations, of your studies, and people can find the information they want there. Or if you haven't done so, you can add some link for the people to read this information. So thank you very much for your time and intervention.